Chen survived sandstorms and flash floods for his YouTube channel, but motion camera footage from an abandoned Wyoming cabin shattered everything he knew. 6 cameras showed a figure standing over his bed at 3:33 a.m. He never woke up. No footprints mark the fresh snow outside. His satellite phone is dying, and rescue arrives in 72 hours. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Derek's boots crunched through 8 inches of fresh powder as he pushed toward the Firewatch cabin. 4 hours into the hike, the February sun hung low over the Wind River Range, throwing long shadows across the snow. He'd started this morning from the trailhead with 60 pounds of gear strapped to his back. Camera equipment, winter survival supplies, enough freeze-dried meals for 5 days. His GoPro captured everything. "This is probably the most remote location I've ever filmed," he said to the lens mounted on his chest. 8 miles from the nearest road. No cell service. Just me and whatever wildlife decides to say hello. The cabin appeared through the pines like something from another era. Stone foundation, weathered timber walls, a steep roof designed to shed heavy snow. Built in the 1950s when the Forest Service still manned these watch stations during fire season. Abandoned for 15 years according to his research. Derek circled the structure, filming from multiple angles. The door hung slightly open. He'd expected a padlock, maybe a chain. Instead, the old brass handle turned freely in his gloved hand. Inside, the cabin was smaller than it looked from outside. 1 room, maybe 20 feet square. A cast-iron wood stove squatted in the corner. A metal bed frame held a surprisingly clean mattress. Table, 2 chairs, observation windows on all 4 walls offering 360 views of the surrounding forest. Too clean. That registered immediately. No animal droppings, no thick dust, no cobwebs in the corners. Derek dropped his pack and began his systematic setup. First, the wood stove. He checked the flue, clear. Tested the door seal, tight. Found a stack of split wood behind the cabin, dry under a tarp someone had left. Within 20 minutes, he had a fire crackling, the temperature inside climbing from below freezing to almost comfortable. Next, the cameras. He pulled 6 motion-activated units from his pack. Battery-powered, infrared, night vision, 14-day recording capacity. He'd used them dozens of times to capture wildlife footage while he slept. 2 cameras went up facing the bed from different angles. 1 covered the door, 1 each for the side windows. The last one he positioned near the stove, capturing the main living area. "Security system active," he told his GoPro. "If anything interesting happens tonight, bear, mountain lion, curious raccoon, we'll catch it on film." The sun touched the western peaks. Derek boiled water for his freeze-dried stroganoff, ate while reviewing the day's footage on his laptop. Good content. His subscribers loved the remote location videos. He found a logbook on the shelf above the bed. Leather-bound, pages yellowed. He flipped through entries from hikers and hunters, dating back years. The last entry stopped him cold. August 2021, 2 years ago. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Couldn't stay. Something not right about 3 a.m., leaving early. Derek read it twice. Probably just paranoia. People got spooked in isolated places. Their imagination filled the silence with threats that didn't exist. He closed the logbook and set his phone alarm for sunrise. The wood stove's glow painted dancing shadows on the log walls. Outside, darkness swallowed the forest completely. Derek crawled into his sleeping bag fully clothed. All 6 cameras blinked red, recording. Derek's phone alarm dragged him from sleep at 7:15. He woke slowly, unusually rested for a first night in a new location. The wood stove had burned down to embers. His breath clouded in the cold air as he pushed out of the sleeping bag. He rebuilt the fire first. Survival basics. Heat, then food, then everything else. Within minutes, the stove radiated warmth again. He filled his pot with snow from outside the door, set it on the stove to melt. While the water heated, Derek pulled out his laptop and started the media transfer. 6 cameras, roughly 8 hours of recording each. He'd scroll through on fast forward, looking for any wildlife that might have passed near the cabin during the night. Camera 1 loaded first. The angle showed his sleeping form from the corner. Bed frame in full view. Derek hit play at 16 times speed, watched himself lying motionless through the dark hours. The timestamp counter rolled forward. Midnight. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3:33 a.m. The timestamp froze him. A figure stood at the foot of the bed. Derek's hand slipped on the trackpad. He rewound 10 seconds, played it again at normal speed. 3:32. Empty room, just him sleeping. 3:33. A shape materialized in frame. Tall, humanoid, standing completely still, facing the bed, facing him. His heart hammered against his ribs. He watched the timestamp tick forward. 3:34, 3:35, 3:36. The figure didn't move, didn't sway, didn't breathe. At 3:37, it stepped out of frame toward the door. Derek's hands shook as he opened camera 2. Different angle, same wall of the cabin. He scrolled to 3:33 a.m. The figure appeared again. Same timestamp. This angle showed it in profile. Definitely humanoid, wearing what looked like old clothing, face obscured in shadow despite the camera's night vision capability. No, this isn't possible. Camera 3, the door camera. He scrubbed to 3:33. The figure was visible in the background, standing over the bed. But the door showed no entry, no movement, no opening. Derek rewound to 3 a.m. Let it play forward at normal speed. The door never moved. He checked all 6 cameras. Every single one captured the figure at exactly 3:33 a.m. Different angles confirmed it was solid, real, present in the room. Derek grabbed his boots, didn't bother lacing them. He burst outside into the snow. Fresh powder had fallen overnight, maybe 2 inches. The entire clearing around the cabin lay pristine and undisturbed. Derek circled the structure, examining every approach. His own tracks from yesterday led to the door. Nothing else. No footprints anywhere near the cabin. No marks in the snow. He completed the circle and stood staring at the evidence. Someone had been inside. He had video proof from 6 different cameras. But nobody had entered through the door. Nobody had approached through the windows. And nobody had left tracks in the fresh snow. Derek went back inside, sat at the table, opened his laptop again, and pulled up the clearest footage. Zoomed in on the figure's face. The resolution was good, the camera expensive. But the face remained in shadow, features indistinct, as if the darkness clung to it regardless of the infrared illumination. His coffee water boiled over, hissing on the stovetop. He didn't notice. Derek forced himself to think methodically. Survival training kicked in when panic threatened. Assess the situation, gather information, make rational decisions based on evidence. He created a folder on his laptop and took screenshots of every camera angle showing the figure. 3:33 a.m. across all 6 feeds. He measured his sleeping position against the footage. The figure had been standing 2 feet from his head. Why hadn't he woken up? Derek replayed the footage again, looking for details he'd missed. The figure's clothing looked old. Not modern hiking gear. Something worn and weathered, like a ranger's uniform from decades past. The posture was wrong too. Too still. Humans swayed slightly when standing. Adjusted weight. Breathed. This thing stood like a statue for 4 full minutes. He searched the cabin more thoroughly now. Started with the obvious places. Under the bed, inside the wood stove, behind the door. Nothing. Then the less obvious. He ran his hands along the log walls, feeling for hollow spots. Checked the floorboards for loose sections. Under the bed frame, tucked into a gap between 2 boards, his fingers found metal. He pulled out a tarnished ranger badge. The name engraved on it was partially legible, R. Corwin. Next to the badge, wrapped in plastic, was a small journal. Derek carried both to the table and opened the journal carefully. The entries were dated 1974, handwritten in neat block letters that deteriorated into scrawl as the pages progressed. March 15, 1974. First week at the Firewatch station. Beautiful country, peaceful. April 3, 1974. Strange dreams lately. Keep waking at 3:30 a.m. exactly. April 10, 1974. Found my own footprints outside this morning. I don't remember going out last night. April 14, 1974. The sleep is getting worse. I don't remember the nights anymore. The final entry made Derek's mouth go dry. April 17th, 1974. Something is wrong with this place. I wake up exhausted, like I've been hiking all night. Found my boots covered in mud, but no memory of leaving the cabin. The clock stopped at 3:33 last night. I'm leaving tomorrow. There were no more entries. Derek pulled out his phone and searched for Ranger R. Corwin Wind River, range 1974. Limited signal, but enough. A single news article from May 1974 loaded. Forest Service Ranger Robert Corwin, age 32, reported missing from Firewatch Station. Last radio contact April 16. Search teams found the cabin locked from inside. Corwin's gear present. Wood stove still burning. No tracks in surrounding area. Derek set the phone down. His extraction wasn't scheduled for 72 hours. His friend Jake would fly in with the bush plane, land in the clearing, pick him up. He looked at his satellite phone. Battery at 60%. He could call for early extraction right now. Claim equipment failure, bad weather forecasts, whatever excuse made sense. Jake would come, but that meant abandoning the story, walking away from footage that defied explanation. His subscribers wanted extreme locations and unexplained phenomena. This was both. Derek made coffee with the now cooled water, forced himself to eat a protein bar. He photographed every page of Corwin's journal, documented the badge, backed up all the camera footage to 3 separate drives. Then he pulled out Forest Service records from a filing cabinet. Incident reports, missing persons. 3 other rangers before Corwin had reported sleep disturbances and memory gaps at this exact station. The sun climbed higher outside. Derek had decisions to make. Derek spent the morning documenting everything. He photographed the ranger badge from multiple angles, the tarnished metal catching the light. Each page of Corwin's journal got high-resolution treatment. He filmed a walkthrough of the cabin, narrating his findings. 4 rangers reported disturbances before Corwin, he said to his camera. All mentioned 3:33 a.m. specifically. Corwin was the only one who vanished. The incident reports painted a pattern. Ranger Thomas Whitmore, 1972, 3 weeks at the station, reported severe insomnia and sleepwalking. Transferred out. Ranger Patricia Voss, 1973, 2 weeks, memory gaps and exhaustion. Medical leave. Ranger David Chen, early 1974, 10 days, found his own footprints in patterns he didn't remember walking. Voluntary resignation. Then Corwin. 4 weeks at the station. Vanished April 18, 1974. Derek tried the satellite phone. Battery down to 52% already. He'd charged it full before the hike. The device had been in his pack all night, powered off. He got 3 bars and dialed Jake. Voicemail. Hey, it's Derek. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, come early. Something weird is happening. I'm fine. Just come early if I don't call back. He ended the call and checked the battery. 47%. 5% lost during a 30-second call. Derek set the phone down and stared at it. Batteries didn't drain at 5 times the normal rate, unless something was interfering. The incident reports mentioned Corwin's watch stopping at 3:33. He pulled out his emergency supplies. 3 days of freeze-dried meals, water purification tablets, fuel tablets, paracord, emergency blanket, first aid kit, flare gun with 4 flares, 2 compasses, headlamp with spare batteries. The compass caught his attention. He held it flat. The needle swung lazily, seeking north, but it didn't settle. It rotated in slow circles, never finding direction. Derek tapped the casing. The needle spun faster. He pulled out the backup compass. Same behavior. Both useless. Magnetic anomaly, Derek said to his camera. Both compasses malfunctioning, which means if I try to hike out and GPS dies. Getting lost in the Wind River Range in February was a death sentence. Stay put. Wait for Jake. 72 hours wasn't unreasonable. He had supplies, shelter, fire. Trying to navigate out with no compass and a dying phone was stupid, but staying meant another night, another 3:33 a.m. Derek set up additional monitoring. He rigged his GoPro on a tripod facing his sleeping bag, set to record continuously. Voice recorder on the table, activated. Laptop capturing all camera feeds. The sun arced across the sky. Derek forced himself to eat lunch, drink water, maintain his physical condition. He stepped outside every hour to check weather. Clear skies, no wind, temperature around 20 degrees. During his 3 p.m. check, he noticed something. Near the tree line, 50 feet from the cabin, there was a depression. Not quite a footprint. More like something had stood there, pressing down the snow in an unnatural shape. Derek approached carefully. The depression was roughly circular, about 3 feet across. The snow was compressed but not disturbed. No entry point, no tracks leading to or from it. He photographed it from multiple angles, then returned to the cabin as the sun touched the mountains. Derek decided he wouldn't sleep. If the phenomenon only occurred while he was unconscious, staying awake eliminated the problem. He'd pulled all-nighters during extreme filming projects. 48 hours without sleep was miserable but survivable. He brewed coffee using the last of his good grounds, set up his workspace at the table with clear sight lines to all windows and the door. Laptop open, all camera feeds visible. Voice recorder running, GoPro aimed at himself. "It's 6:30 p.m., he narrated. 8.5 hours until 3:33. I'm staying awake through it. I'll document the whole event." He laid out his stimulants. 3 energy drinks, 12 caffeine pills, dark chocolate, pack of gum. The sun disappeared. Darkness came fast. Derek checked the wood stove, added 2 logs. He needed light and warmth, but also white noise. Silence made staying awake harder. By 8 p.m., his research was complete. He'd organized Corwin's journal entries chronologically, cross-referenced them with incident reports. A pattern emerged. Every ranger reported the phenomenon starting on their first night, waking at 3:33. Memory gaps, exhaustion. But severity increased each night. First night, just waking at the specific time. Second night, brief memory gaps. Third night, full blackout periods, finding evidence of activity they didn't remember. Corwin's final entry was from day 17. Derek was on night 2. The first energy drink went down at 9. His heart rate picked up within minutes. He did 50 push-ups, 50 squats. At 10 p.m., he reviewed last night's footage again. The figure's clothing was definitely old Ranger uniform. He could make out a badge on the chest. The figure's proportions were wrong, too tall, limbs too long, head at an odd angle. 10:30. Derek's eyes felt gritty. He splashed water on his face, popped 2 caffeine pills, chewed gum. 11 p.m., 4.5 hours remaining. He walked circles around the cabin, sat to review footage, stood to do exercises. 11:30, his phone battery was at 31% despite airplane mode. Derek watched it drop to 29 over 5 minutes. He powered it off completely. Midnight, halfway there. Derek felt wired but stable. His hands trembled slightly. 12:15. The temperature dropped suddenly. Derek's breath misted despite the stove burning hot. The air had plummeted at least 15 degrees in seconds. Sudden temperature drop at 12:15. No apparent cause. Ambient temperature now around 30 degrees inside. 12:30. Derek heard footsteps outside, crunching through snow. He grabbed his headlamp, aimed it at the door. The footsteps circled the cabin. Slow, methodical. He trained his light on windows as the sounds moved. Nothing visible, just darkness and falling snow. When had it started snowing? The footsteps completed their circuit and stopped at the door. The handle didn't move. The footsteps started again, circling counterclockwise. 1 a.m., 2.5 hours to 3:33. The footsteps had circled the cabin 17 times. 1:30. Derek's hands wouldn't stop shaking. From the caffeine. He'd taken too much. His heart hammered irregular rhythms. Sweat soaked his shirt despite the cold. The footsteps had stopped. Complete silence except for crackling wood. Derek stared at his laptop, watching 6 camera feeds. Nothing moved. 2 a.m., 93 minutes until 3:33. Derek's vision blurred. He blinked hard. The caffeine had peaked and was crashing. He felt simultaneously wired and exhausted. He paced, table to stove to bed to door. His boots on wood provided rhythm. 2:15. His laptop screen flickered. All 6 feeds went black. Derek checked connections, secure. Battery, full. Hit refresh. The feeds came back after 3 seconds. Derek scrubbed back. At exactly 2:14 and 47 seconds, all cameras had stopped. 3-second gap, then resumed. He went through yesterday's footage. Same thing. Brief blackout at 2:15, then another at 2:45. 2:30. His exhaustion was crushing. The caffeine boost had evaporated. His eyelids felt like lead. Derek stood, did jumping jacks. His vision swam. Stay awake. 1 more hour. 2:45. The cameras went dark again. 3 seconds. When they returned, something had changed. The figure was visible in camera 3, standing outside the door. Derek spun to face the door. Nothing there. He looked back at the screen. The figure remained in camera 3 only. He rewound. Before the blackout, empty clearing. After, figure present. No transition. It simply appeared during those 3 seconds. Derek grabbed his headlamp and moved to the window. His beam swept where the figure should be. Nothing. Snow falling through empty air. On screen, the figure remained, motionless. 3 a.m., 33 minutes. Derek sat heavily. His body screamed for sleep. He pinched his thigh hard, bit his tongue until he tasted blood. 33 minutes. I'm going to see what happens. 3:15. Derek stood. Couldn't trust sitting. He walked his circuit. His legs felt like concrete. 3:20. His vision doubled. 2 stoves, 2 tables, 2 doors. He shook his head. The images merged. 3:25. He checked all recording equipment. Everything green. 3:30. 3 minutes. He stood center cabin, rotating slowly. His headlamp swept walls, windows, door. Nothing moving. 3:32. 1 minute. Derek's heart spiked. His vision tunneled. Edges went dark. He fought to keep his eyes open. 3:33. The world tilted sideways. Derek woke on the floor beside his chair at 7:33 a.m. exactly. 4 hours after 3:33. His body ached like he'd run a marathon. His clothes were soaked with sweat despite the cabin's temperature, hovering near freezing. He scrambled to his laptop. The cameras had recorded everything. At 3:33 a.m., Derek's body stood up from the chair, but his eyes stayed closed. His movements were fluid, inhuman. He walked to the door, opened it without hesitation, and stepped outside into the snow wearing only his thermal shirt and pants. No coat, no boots. The door camera showed him walking into the clearing, 20 feet out, 30, 40. Then he stopped. Stood perfectly still in the falling snow for exactly 4 minutes. At 3:37, Derek turned and walked back inside, closed the door, lay down on the floor. His eyes opened briefly, completely black, no white visible, then closed again. The figure appeared in all 6 camera feeds at 3:33, standing in the corner, watching Derek's body walk outside. When Derek returned and lay down, the figure approached, knelt beside him, reached out one hand and touched his forehead. The cameras all went black for 3 seconds. When they resumed, the figure was gone. Derek played the footage 3 times. His hands trembled so badly he could barely control the trackpad. This story takes time to craft. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Derek woke on the floor at 7:33 a.m. exactly. 4 hours after 3:33, his body ached like he'd run a marathon. His clothes were soaked with sweat despite the near-freezing temperature. He scrambled to his laptop. The cameras had recorded everything. At 3:33 a.m., Derek's body stood up from the chair, eyes closed. His movements were fluid, inhuman. He walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside into the snow wearing only his thermal shirt and pants. No coat, no boots. The door camera showed him walking into the clearing. 20 feet, 30, 40. Then he stopped, stood perfectly still in the falling snow for exactly 4 minutes. At 3:37, Derek turned and walked back inside, closed the door, lay down on the floor. His eyes opened briefly, completely black, then closed again. The figure appeared in all 6 camera feeds at 3:33, standing in the corner, watching Derek's body walk outside. When Derek returned and lay down, the figure approached, knelt beside him, reached out one hand and touched his forehead. The cameras went black for 3 seconds. When they resumed, the figure was gone. Derek played the footage 3 times. His hands trembled so badly he could barely control the trackpad. He grabbed his boots and ran outside. Fresh powder covered everything. Derek followed his own tracks from yesterday, circling until he found what he was looking for. His bare footprints, leading from the door into the clearing. They went 40 feet out, stopped at a circular depression, the same depression he'd photographed yesterday. His footprints stood inside it for 4 minutes. Then they led back. But the returning prints were different. Deeper. The stride length was wrong. 32 inches going out, 41 inches coming back. He couldn't physically walk with a 41-inch stride without running. Derek checked his feet. No frostbite, no damage. His feet should be destroyed after 4 minutes barefoot in sub-zero temperatures. Instead, they looked normal. He made coffee with shaking hands, forced himself to eat. His satellite phone was completely dead despite being turned off. The battery had drained to 0 overnight. He was 48 hours from extraction. 2 more nights. If the pattern held, tonight would be worse. Derek pulled up Corwin's journal. Night 1, Corwin woke at 3:33. Night 2, he found his own footprints outside. Night 3, gone for longer tonight, 10 minutes, maybe more. Found myself at the tree line. By night 7, I'm not sleeping anymore. I'm going somewhere else. Somewhere I can't remember, but pieces of it are bleeding through. Cold, dark, others there with me. Night 17 was the last entry. I'm more there than here now. During the day I can feel it pulling. The cabin isn't the cabin anymore. I see through it to what's underneath. I should leave, but I know I won't. Can't. Derek checked his watch. 9:30 a.m. 18 hours until 3:33 again. He needed to try leaving, navigate by the sun. 8 miles back to the trailhead. Derek packed essential gear. Camera equipment stayed. He took water, 1 day of food, emergency beacon, flare gun, first aid kit, 30 pounds. At 10 a.m., he stepped outside and started walking, due east toward the trailhead. He made it 200 yards before the nausea hit. It came on sudden and overwhelming, dropping him to his knees. Derek vomited into the snow. The nausea faded. Derek stood, kept walking, 300 yards. The headache started. Pressure behind his eyes like an ice pick. His vision blurred. Each step sent lightning bolts of pain through his head. 400 yards. Derek collapsed. The pain was unbearable. He couldn't see, couldn't think. He turned around and started crawling back toward the cabin. The pain lessened with each foot. By the time he reached the cabin door, it was gone completely. Derek sat inside for an hour, processing what had just happened. His body had physically prevented him from leaving. He was trapped. At 11:30, Derek tried a different direction, northwest toward a ridge. He made it 300 yards before the nausea returned, pushed to 400 before the headache started. At 500 yards, his nose began bleeding. At 550, his legs gave out. He crawled back. The pattern was consistent. He could move freely within roughly a quarter-mile radius of the cabin. Beyond that, his body rebelled with escalating severity. Derek found what he was looking for in Corwin's file. Ranger David Chen, 1974. The report included a medical evaluation after Chen requested emergency extraction on day 9. Subject reports severe physiological distress when attempting to leave duty station. Symptoms include nausea, migraine headaches, epistaxis, and temporary paralysis. Symptoms cease immediately upon returning to station. Medical examination reveals no underlying cause. Chen had experienced the same thing. The cabin didn't just observe them, it held them. Derek pulled out his emergency beacon. He activated it and checked the status display. Signal transmitting. GPS coordinates locked. Help would come. The beacon's documentation promised response within 6 to 12 hours. Derek had activated it at noon. That meant rescue could arrive as early as 6 p.m., as late as midnight. He needed them here before 3:33 a.m. Derek spent the afternoon preparing. He cleared a landing zone, marking the perimeter with broken branches. He positioned 2 flares at opposite ends, ready to ignite. At 2 p.m. he thought he heard helicopter rotors. He ran outside, scanned the sky. Nothing. Just wind through the pines. 5 p.m. Derek heard engines. Real this time. He grabbed both flares and ran to the clearing. Lit them, the red smoke billowing into the darkening sky. A small aircraft appeared over the ridge. Single engine. Bush plane. Not a rescue helicopter. It was Jake. The plane circled twice. Derek waved frantically. Jake waggled the wings. The plane descended, lined up with the clearing, wheels kissing the snow, sliding to a stop 50 feet from the cabin. Jake climbed out, bundled in winter gear. He was grinning until he got close enough to see Derek's face. Jesus, man, you look like hell. What happened? Derek grabbed Jake's arm. We need to leave, right now, before dark. I got your beacon alert, came as fast as I could. What's the emergency? I'll explain on the flight. We need to go. Jake studied him. Derek, you're scaring me. What's going on? Please, just trust me. We need to leave right now. Jake nodded slowly. Okay, grab your gear. Derek ran to the cabin, threw essentials into his pack. Laptop with all the footage. Corwin's journal. The ranger badge. Everything else could stay. He emerged from the cabin. Jake was waiting by the plane. Pre-flight check complete. They walked toward the aircraft together. Derek felt fine. No nausea. No headache. The plane was only 200 yards from the cabin, within his movement radius. Jake climbed into the pilot's seat. Derek threw his pack in back and grabbed the co-pilot door handle. Pain exploded behind his eyes. Derek's knees buckled. He hit the snow hard, one hand still gripping the door handle. Blood poured from his nose. Derek! Jake was out of the plane in seconds. What's wrong? Derek couldn't speak. The pain was a living thing. His vision went white. His grip on the door handle released and immediately the pain lessened. I can't, Derek gasped. Can't get in. Can't leave. What are you talking about? Derek crawled backward through the snow. With each foot of distance, the pain receded. At 10 feet away, it was gone. He wiped blood from his face. Jake knelt beside him. You need a hospital. I'm trapped here. I can't leave the area around the cabin. When I try, my body shuts down. That's not possible. I've tried 4 times today. Every direction. Same result. Jake stared at him. Then I'll carry you. You try to force me onto that plane, and I'll probably die. I don't know what the upper limit is, but I'm not testing it. Jake sat back in the snow. So what do we do? Derek handed him Corwin's journal. Read this, then look at the footage on my laptop. You need to understand what's happening. They went inside. Derek built up the fire while Jake read the journal, his expression shifting from skepticism to fear. Then Derek showed him the camera footage. All of it. Jake watched in silence. When it ended, he looked at Derek with new eyes. This is real. Yes. And tonight is night 3. Yes. Jake was quiet. You should leave with me. We'll knock you unconscious, deal with whatever happens. Maybe trying to force it kills me. Or worse, Corwin's body left. They found his truck in town, but he vanished from a locked hotel room that night. Whatever this is, it doesn't let go just because you physically leave. So what's your plan? Survive tonight and hope I can figure out what's happening. If I understand it, maybe I can break it. Jake stood and walked to the window. I'm not leaving you here alone. You have to. If you stay, you become part of this. Night 1 starts the cycle. I can stay awake. I tried that. It happened anyway. Whatever this thing is, it doesn't need you asleep. It just needs you here at 3:33. Jake's jaw was set. I'm not abandoning you. You're not. You're getting help. Forest Service, police, scientists, someone who can stop people from coming here after I'm gone. Jake checked his watch. It's 5:45. Sun sets in 30 minutes. I need to take off before dark. Then go, please, take the laptop and journal. Show people what's happening. Make sure they close this place down. Jake grabbed the laptop and journal, packed them in his gear bag. At the door, he stopped. I'll be back tomorrow, earlier, with help. I know. Jake managed a weak smile. Then he was gone, jogging toward the plane. Derek watched from the window as the engine started. The plane taxied, turned, accelerated, lifted off clean, banked west. Then Derek was alone. 6 p.m., 9.5 hours until 3:33. Derek spent the next hour searching the cabin. Not for supplies, he'd already found those. He was looking for a mechanism, some physical explanation for what was happening. The floorboards came up easily. Beneath them, solid stone foundation, no hidden chambers, no buried artifacts, just rock and dirt. He checked the walls next, tapped every log, listening for hollow spaces, found nothing. The cabin was exactly what it appeared to be, a simple structure built in the 1950s. By 7:30, he'd exhausted the physical search. Whatever was happening wasn't tied to a hidden object. It was the location itself, the ground, the specific coordinates. Derek pulled out geological survey maps from the filing cabinet. The cabin sat at the intersection of two fault lines. The notation caught his attention. Magnetic anomaly, compass variation plus 15 degrees. He cross-referenced with Corwin's research notes. The ranger had been studying magnetic field variations. The notes mentioned unusual readings at 0330 hours, spike in EM field strength, duration approximately 4 minutes. 3:30 AM, 4 minutes, the exact window when the figure appeared. 8 p.m., 7.5 hours to go. Derek made dinner mechanically. Freeze-dried beef stroganoff. He forced it down. He needed the calories. He thought about Corwin's final entries. The ranger had described seeing through the cabin to what was underneath. Derek stood in the center of the room and closed his eyes. Tried to feel what Corwin had felt. Nothing at first. Just warmth from the stove, the smell of wood smoke, the sound of wind outside. Then something shifted, a sensation of depth beneath his feet. Not physical depth, something else. Like standing on ice and sensing water below. The cabin suddenly felt thin. A membrane stretched over something vast. Derek's eyes snapped open. The sensation vanished, but he'd felt it. For just a moment, he'd touched whatever Corwin had experienced. The cabin as a doorway. A thin point between here and somewhere else. 9 p.m., Derek set up his remaining equipment. Most of his cameras and laptop were gone with Jake, but he still had his GoPro, his phone, and one trail camera. He positioned them strategically. GoPro on the table facing the bed. Trail camera mounted high. He powered on his phone, 3% battery, and set it recording. 9:30. Derek sat at the table and wrote, a letter to his family, to Jake, to whoever found this place after he was gone. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead or disappeared like Ranger Corwin. What's happening here is real. The cabin sits on some kind of dimensional weak point. Every night at 3:33 a.m., something crosses over, and it's taking pieces of me with it each time. Don't try to save me. Don't send more people here. Burn this place. Destroy it completely. Tell my parents I love them. Derek folded the letter and put it in a waterproof bag. Left it on the table where it couldn't be missed. 10 p.m., 5.5 hours remaining. He checked his recordings from previous nights, studying the figure's movements frame by frame, looking for patterns, weaknesses. At 11 p.m., Derek noticed his shadow on the wall. The wood stove's fire cast it clearly against the logs. But something was wrong. The shadow moved a fraction of a second behind his actual movements. He raised his hand. The shadow raised its hand, but delayed. Derek stepped closer. His shadow's proportions were slightly off. The head too large, the limbs too long. When he turned his head left, the shadow turned right first, then corrected. He grabbed his phone, 2% battery, and filmed his shadow. 30 seconds before the phone died. But it was enough. 11:30. 4 hours to 3:33. Derek felt the pull now, even during waking hours. A subtle tug toward sleep, toward unconsciousness. He fought it by moving. Did push-ups until his arms shook. Squats until his legs burned. Midnight. Derek reviewed what he knew. Night 1, figure appears, no physical contact. Night 2, figure appears. Derek's body walks outside. Figure touches his forehead. Night 3, according to Corwin's pattern, he'd go further. Stay gone longer. By night 17, Corwin was barely human. Derek had 45 more hours until Jake returned. That meant tonight and tomorrow night. 2 more nights in the cycle. 12:30 a.m. 3 hours remaining. The temperature in the cabin dropped again. Derek's breath misted despite the roaring fire. He checked the stove, burning hot, but the air had plummeted to near freezing. The phenomenon was starting early. Derek noticed the corners of the cabin were darker than they should be. Not shadow, actual darkness. He shone his headlamp into the corner near the door. The beam penetrated maybe 2 feet before fading to nothing. 1 a.m. Derek heard footsteps outside again, circling the cabin, but this time they weren't alone. Multiple sets of footsteps, different rhythms, different weights. He went to the window, shone his light outside, nothing visible, but the footsteps continued. Derek counted at least 4 distinct patterns. 1:30 a.m. The footsteps stopped, complete silence. Then he heard breathing, inside the cabin, not his own, coming from the corner where the darkness was deepest. Derek trained his headlamp on the corner. The beam died 2 feet in, but he could see movement in that darkness now. Something shifting, taking shape. 2 a.m., 90 minutes until 3:33. The figure was visible now even though Derek was awake, standing in the corner, watching him, taller than before, more solid. Derek tried to film it with his GoPro. The camera's screen showed static where the figure stood, but to his naked eye, the figure was clear. "What are you?" Derek asked aloud. The figure didn't respond, but it moved. 1 step forward, then another, moving toward Derek. 2:15 a.m. The figure stood 10 feet away now. The clothing was definitely old Ranger uniform, but deteriorated, moth-eaten. The badge on the chest was Corwin's badge. The face was still obscured, a blur, like Derek's eyes couldn't focus on the features. 2:30 a.m., 1 hour remaining. Derek stood from the table. The figure blocked the path to the door. "I know you were Corwin. I know this place took you, but I'm not going to let it take me." The figure tilted its head. The motion was wrong, too far, inhuman. 2:45 a.m. The figure raised one hand, pointed at the bed. The gesture was clear. "Lie down. Submit." Derek shook his head. "No, not tonight." The figure took another step forward. Derek could smell it now. Old decay mixed with something sharp. Ozone. Burnt copper. 3 a.m. 33 minutes. The cabin's walls began to fade. Derek could see through them to what lay beyond. Not the forest. Something else. A vast space filled with geometric shapes that hurt to look at. Crystalline structures that shouldn't exist. And figures. Dozens of them. Standing in formation around a central point. All watching, all waiting. Derek recognized the formation. 9 points. The 9 Rangers who'd stayed here. Corwin and the 8 before him. They formed a pattern, a gateway, and Derek was meant to be the 10th. 3:15 a.m., 18 minutes until 3:33. Derek's vision split between 2 realities. The cabin was both solid and transparent. He saw the wood stove and the crystalline void simultaneously. The figure, Corwin, spoke, not with sound. The words appeared in Derek's consciousness. "Stop fighting. It's easier if you don't resist." "What happens if I don't fight?" Derek asked. "You join us. Become part of the pattern." "And if I keep fighting?" "The process takes longer, more painful, but the result is the same. We need 10 points for full stability. You were drawn here for a reason." 3:20 a.m., 13 minutes. Derek felt his legs weakening. The pull towards sleep was overwhelming. He bit his tongue, using the pain to stay conscious. "Why can't I leave? You're already partially converted. Your consciousness is bound to this location. By night 8, you'll be fully integrated." 3:25 a.m., 8 minutes remaining. Derek's hands were shaking. His body wanted to shut down. He thought of Jake returning tomorrow with help. But what could help accomplish? They'd just find Derek gone. Another name in the list of vanished Rangers? Unless Derek ended it himself. Fire. The cabin acted as a focal point. If Derek burned the cabin, destroyed the physical focal point, maybe he could disrupt the pattern. break the gateway before he became part of it. 3:28 a.m., 5 minutes to 3:33. Derek moved fast, grabbed the kerosene lantern, unscrewed the base, started pouring fuel across the wooden floor. The figure, Corwin, stepped toward him, but Derek dodged around the table. "You can't stop this," Corwin's voice echoed. "The binding is too strong." "Maybe, but I'm taking this gateway with me." Derek splashed kerosene on the bed, the table, the walls. He grabbed his camping fuel tablets, broke them open, scattered the material, added lighter fluid from his emergency kit. 3:30 a.m. 3 minutes. Derek's vision was failing. The crystalline void was dominant now. The 9 figures in their formation were clear. They were calling to him. His place was ready. The 10th point. His body moved toward the bed. Not his choice. The binding was taking over. Derek fought it, but his legs carried him forward anyway. 3:32 a.m. 1 minute. Derek's hand reached into his pocket, found the lighter. Some part of him, survival instinct buried deep, took over. He flicked the lighter. The flame caught. 3:33 a.m. Derek dropped the lighter onto the kerosene-soaked floor. The cabin exploded into flame. Heat blasted across Derek's skin. Smoke filled his lungs. The fire spread impossibly fast, consuming everything. Corwin's figure recoiled. The other figures in the void screamed. Not sound, but sensation. Pure agony transmitted into Derek's consciousness. The binding snapped. Derek felt it break like a physical chain releasing. His body was his own again, but he was surrounded by fire. The door was blocked. The windows too small. The cabin was an inferno, and he was trapped inside. Derek dropped to the floor where the air was clearer. Smoke rose naturally. The bottom 18 inches of the cabin still had breathable oxygen. He crawled toward the door on his belly, heat searing his neck. The door was engulfed. Flames climbed both sides. The handle glowed red hot. Derek couldn't reach it without burning his hands to uselessness. He changed direction, crawled toward the nearest window. The glass had already shattered from heat. The frame was maybe 18 inches square. Derek was 6 feet tall, 170 pounds. He'd have to squeeze through. The fire had reached the bed. The mattress went up like gasoline, adding thick black smoke. Derek's lungs burned. He pulled his thermal shirt over his mouth and nose. He reached the window, grabbed the frame. The wood was hot, but not impossible. Derek hauled himself toward the opening, got his head and shoulders through. His hips caught, too wide. He was stuck halfway through the window, fire behind him, freezing air on his face. Derek twisted, angling his body. His belt buckle caught on the sill. He unlatched it one-handed, pushed his pants down. Tried again. His hips scraped through, skin tore. Derek pulled with his arms, pushed with his legs, got his waist through. Then his legs. He fell headfirst into the snow outside. The cold was immediate and shocking. Derek rolled away from the cabin. 20 feet, 30. He collapsed face down in the snow, gasping, coughing, black phlegm. Behind him, the cabin roared. Flames reached 20 feet high. The roof collapsed inward with a crash. The walls followed, timber beams falling like dominoes. Derek watched it burn. His hands were blistered. His back felt like one continuous burn. But he was alive. He was out. And the binding was gone. He could feel the absence of it. That invisible tether had snapped when the structure started collapsing. He was free. Derek lay in the snow for 10 minutes. His survival training kicked in through the shock. Assess injuries, secure shelter, maintain core temperature. His hands were burned but functional, 2nd degree at worst. His back was the same. His biggest danger was hypothermia. He was lying in snow, soaked, wearing only his thermal shirt and pants. His coat had been inside. Derek forced himself to stand. His legs shook but held. He looked at the burning wreckage. Everything was gone. His pack, his supplies, his emergency gear, all consumed. But he could leave now. The moon was 3/4 full. Derek oriented himself by the stars. East was that way. 8 miles to the trailhead. He'd hiked it 2 days ago in daylight with proper gear. Now he'd do it at night, injured, with no supplies. Derek started walking. Each step hurt. His burned skin pulled with every movement. The cold air bit into his exposed flesh. But he kept moving. Motion generated heat. Motion meant survival. He made it 100 yards before he realized his boots were still inside the cabin. He was barefoot in the snow. Derek looked down. His feet were already numb. Without boots, he wouldn't make it 2 miles. He stood there in the snow, smoke from the burning cabin drifting across the clearing. His feet were going to freeze. He was going to lose toes, maybe die of hypothermia before reaching help. But he was free. The cabin was destroyed. The gateway was broken. Whatever had taken Corwin wouldn't take anyone else. Derek had won, even if winning killed him. He wrapped his thermal shirt around his feet as best he could, tore strips from his undershirt to tie the makeshift boots in place. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then he started walking again, east, toward the trailhead, toward survival. Derek made it half a mile before the makeshift foot wraps fell apart, the fabric shredded against ice and rocks. He was barefoot again, each step driving frozen needles into his soles. Pine boughs. He could wrap his feet in pine boughs, tie them with strips from his pants. Derek veered toward the nearest pine. Breaking branches barehanded was harder than it looked. He collected a dozen thin branches with dense needle coverage. He sat on a fallen log and wrapped his feet. Right foot first. 3 branches layered around his sole and ankle. He used his belt to secure them. Then the left foot using strips torn from his pants' legs. The pine needles created a barrier between his skin and the snow. Not warm, but less catastrophically cold. Derek stood and tested his new boots. They held. He started walking again. 1 mile, 2 miles. Derek's feet were numb blocks. He couldn't feel the ground anymore. That was dangerous. Numbness meant frostbite was progressing. He had maybe an hour before the damage became permanent. 3 miles. Derek's core temperature was dropping. He could feel it in the sluggishness of his thoughts. His body was shutting down non-essential functions. He needed to generate more heat. Derek started jogging. The motion got his heart pumping. Blood flow increased. His core temperature stabilized. But jogging burned calories fast. Calories he didn't have. 4 miles. Halfway. Derek's jog had slowed to a walk. His legs felt like concrete. Each step required conscious effort. 5 miles. Derek's vision was tunneling. The edges went dark. Classic sign of hypothermia progression. He was entering the danger zone. The place where people sat down to rest and never got up. 6 miles. Derek fell. Tripped over something hidden in the snow. He hit hard, face first. Snow filled his mouth and nose. For a moment, he just lay there. It would be so easy to stay down. But he thought about his parents, about Jake, about everyone who'd be affected if he died out here after surviving the impossible. Derek pushed himself up, stood, started walking again. 7 miles. He was close. Just 1 more mile. Derek's mind fixed on that number. He could do 1 more mile. The tree line broke ahead. Half mile to the trailhead. 1/4 mile to where Jake had parked before flying him in. Headlights. Real ones. Cutting through the darkness ahead. A vehicle on the access road. Derek tried to shout. His voice came out as a croak. He raised his arms, waved them. The headlights turned toward him. The truck stopped 20 feet from Derek. Doors opened. 2 figures emerged. Jake and someone else. Forest Service uniform. They ran toward him. Jesus Christ, Derek! Jake's voice cracked. What happened? Derek's legs gave out. Jake caught him. The Forest Service ranger, a woman, maybe 40, was pulling emergency blankets from her pack. Get him in the truck. Heat on full. We need a hospital now. They carried Derek to the truck. The heater was running. The warmth hit his frozen skin like electricity. He gasped, then started shaking uncontrollably. Jake wrapped 3 emergency blankets around him. Your feet! I know. Had to. No choice. The ranger was on her radio. Dispatch, this is Ranger Martinez. Critical hypothermia case. Male, late 20s, severe frostbite to extremities, possible burns. Fire Creek trailhead. Need immediate medevac. Static. Then, copy. Helicopters 15 minutes out. Martinez turned to Derek. Can you tell me what happened? The cabin burned down. Accident. Kerosene lantern. I got out through the window, but my gear was inside. I had to walk. You walked 8 miles barefoot in February. Didn't have a choice. Martinez studied him. Her expression said she didn't believe the kerosene story, but she didn't push it. Jake was sitting beside Derek. I had a bad feeling. Decided to do another flyover at first light. Saw the glow from 20 miles away. What time is it? Derek asked. 5:30 a.m. The helicopter arrived 12 minutes later. 2 paramedics emerged with a stretcher. They loaded Derek quickly, started an IV, wrapped his feet in thermal dressings, checked vitals. The older paramedic shook his head while examining Derek's feet. You're going to lose some toes, maybe more, but you made it out. Derek nodded. He'd expected as much, but he'd live. He'd escaped. As they lifted him into the helicopter, Derek looked back toward the mountains. Smoke still rose from where the cabin had stood. 8 miles away, impossible to see in the pre-dawn darkness. The gateway was destroyed. The pattern was broken. Whatever had taken Corwin would take no one else. The helicopter lifted off. Derek closed his eyes. The adrenaline drained away. He felt darkness pulling at him. Not the crystalline void, just normal, human exhaustion. He let himself fall into it. Derek woke in a hospital bed. White walls, beeping monitors. His feet were elevated, wrapped in gauze. Jake sat in a chair beside the bed, asleep. He looked terrible. Dark circles, 3 days of stubble, clothes rumpled. Derek's movement woke him. Hey, you're awake. How long? 36 hours. They kept you sedated while they worked on your feet. The damage. Jake's expression answered before his words. You lost 3 toes on your left foot, 2 on your right, but the doctors say you'll walk again. Might have a limp, but you'll walk. Derek processed that. 5 toes. A small price for escape. For ending the cycle that had taken 9 lives before his. The cabin, Derek asked. Burned to the foundation. Forest Service investigated. They're calling it accidental. Kerosene lantern, just like you said. Jake leaned forward. But I know that's not what happened. I watched the footage. I know what was in that cabin. Did you show anyone? No. You said to wait. But now you need to decide. Do we tell people, or do we let it die with the cabin? Derek thought about it. The truth would sound insane. He'd be labeled crazy. Everything he'd survived would be dismissed as hallucination. But if he stayed silent, people might rebuild. Tell the Forest Service the cabin's foundation is unstable, Derek said. Geological issues, magnetic anomalies. Make sure they don't let anyone rebuild there. Ever. Jake nodded. I can do that. I know people in the department. And the footage. I'll keep it. Encrypted backup. If anyone ever tries to rebuild, we'll have evidence to stop them. Good. They sat in silence. Then Jake asked, was it real? All of it. Derek met his friend's eyes. Every second. And if I'd stayed one more night, I'd be like Corwin. Gone. Jake shuddered. So you burned it down. I burned it down. And almost died doing it. Almost. Derek looked at his bandaged feet. But I didn't. That's what counts. So, if this story meant something to you, drop a comment and share it. It helps the next person find their way here.